I go to the starting line, and all of a sudden, Nathan, I feel my son. And he says, "Let's do this, Mom." And like all the hesitation that you normally feel, like what keeps sane people from doing ninja? Usually hesitation, right? All of that just left. And I ran across those steps, and I ran across the log, and I did the jumping spider, and I did the devil step, and I came down the other side, and I looked at my husband, and I was like, "I've never done that before." And he was like, "I know."
Welcome to the Why We Believe show, where members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints share their inspiring stories of faith and conversion to the gospel of Jesus Christ. I'm your host, Nathan Gwilliam. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Why We Believe show. Today I'm joined by Jennedy Page. Jennedy has competed in 5 seasons of American Ninja Warrior, and she's a coach at the Ninja Playground in Lehi, Utah. She's also a professional painter. You can see her painting on the other screen as I talk here, and she's going to paint during this interview. Jennedy, thanks for being part of the show today.
Thanks for having me. I absolutely love being on podcasts. It's always so fun.
So, Jennedy, you are called the Art Ninja because you're a professional artist and you do American Ninja Warrior. Can you tell us something that not everybody knows about you?
Yeah, that's actually kind of a hard question because I feel like I'm such an open book, and I've done so many podcasts that my life story is out there for like most people to enjoy. But something that most people don't know came up yesterday as I spoke in church on Mother's Day. And that thing is that I struggled to get pregnant with my first kid. And, I don't really want to call it like infertility, because I think if it only takes a year or so, then I don't know. I just know so many people that struggle with that way longer. But for me, it was a really difficult thing and something that drew me closer to Jesus Christ. And I think most people don't really know that.
I love it. And you now have 3 kids?
Well, I have 3 here, and I have 1 on the other side.
One that's passed away. I'm so sorry. Can you tell us about that experience of losing a child? Tell us that story.
Well, I'll tell you, it's not really fun.
Yeah.
Wouldn't really recommend it for anybody. But it's interesting because for me to look back, like it was so hard to get him here. And then his exit was also extremely hard. But yeah, so
at the time
he was 3. Darling little boy. So we were living in Tucson, Arizona. My husband went to the University of Arizona for his graduate degree. And so we were living with my parents to offset the cost of school. And they had an acre lot that had a pond and a pool. And my mom's like, "I've got 2 bodies of water back here. This is not a good idea with 2 little boys." And so we decided to fence off her patio. So you literally couldn't enter the backyard at all to try and protect them. And then we had alarms on the doors that would alert us if anybody opened the door. We just put up all these precautions to try to keep my boys safe. So my oldest, Victory Morgan, was 3, and my second son, Benson True, was like a year old. But then one day, even though you have all these precautions, just like a perfect storm arose, and I pulled my son out of the pool, and CPR and paramedics, and you think this isn't real. Like you really do. You have this really interesting feeling that's so bad that it can't actually be happening, and that you're just gonna wake up. But yeah, my son was life flighted to Tucson Medical Center, and I remember they didn't let me go in the helicopter with him, so I just had to drive, and just wondering what you're going to see on the other side when you get there. And they had him in a medically induced coma for about a week, and I just prayed and prayed and hoped that he was just going to wake up when they took the drugs off and just say, "Sorry, Mom, I fell in the pool." But instead, when he was taken off of the drugs, he started something called sympathetic storming, which looks a lot like a seizure. Like all of the muscles flex in the body, and the heart rate, everything goes really high. But like no seizure medication could stop these storms, as they called them. And eventually, after being in the hospital for almost 7 weeks, the storms grew to be like 48 hours, and his body just broke.
I am so sorry. That's got to
Yeah.
be one of the worst possible things that a mother could ever go through.
Yeah, I mean, I had a lot of long nights in the hospital where everybody was gone. It was just me and him. And he would storm, and there was nothing that I could do but like stand stand there and cry and hold his hand and pray. And I really did have so many nights where I just thought about God and Jesus Christ and what it was like for him to watch his son suffer.
Yeah.
So, I mean, God gave me a very interesting education in that experience. And I guess I've just been trying to do the most good with that education ever since.
Yeah. Yeah. So my wife and I lived in Gilbert, Arizona, not too
Oh,
far.
I live there too.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
and there were actually two children that passed away from drowning in that ward. And one passed away drowned in a pond, and one in a swimming pool. And that it's always been very close on my mind. And when we moved to Rexburg here, we bought a property that has a large pond on it. And I can't tell you how many times I prayed, that God would keep everybody safe, and we recently sold that property. And yeah, I'm so sorry you had to go through that. How has that affected or impacted your faith in Jesus Christ?
Well, you find yourself at kind of like this crossroad, because God disappointed you. And I think growing up, I just thought that if I had a relationship with God, then it was always going to be positive. And I learned that if you have a real relationship with somebody, there's going to be times where you're disappointed because God's perfect, but we're not.
Yeah.
And so I knew too much in the moment to just walk away and say, screw it. I don't want you in my life. I I knew too much. Like I couldn't because I had seen his hand in my life so many times. And so I had no choice but to show up to the relationship just mad, right? Like, hey, you really hurt my feelings. Like you in the worst possible way. But I know that you're there. So I'm just going to tell you right now that I'm mad, and that's kind of where we started. But I feel like God wants us to show up honestly, even if showing up honestly means that we're mad, because then at least we're real. And if you have a real relationship with somebody, well then he could do something with you. So he was really patient with me. It took a long time. I think I cried. When I say cry, I mean like wailed, like the worst kind of horrible sound a mom could make for like a year. Like every morning, I would get up, I would go into my studio really early in the morning to paint, and I would just cry and listen to uplifting music. Sometimes I would listen to uplifting talks or messages, but just try to do something to feed my spirit and then just cry. And but as I kept showing up in this relationship with God, even though I was mad and hurt and broken and all the things, it was so beautiful because like any other relationship, I went through a difficult, my husband and I think any relationship that you have sometimes goes through difficult times. And if you have the courage to see it through, like if you persevere through those difficult times, then your relationship, it gets stronger on the other side,
Yeah,
right? Like,
that's right.
and I feel like the same thing happens with us and God. Like if you don't throw it away and if you just hang in there, then on the other side, like your relationship with him is going to be all the more strong. And so, yeah, like how has that experience affected my relationship with God. Um, I mean, if my heart wasn't sealed to him before, it is now. So,
I love it. I love it. It's kind of like a spiral, this
mm,
life that we go through, and we're all in a spot on that spiral. And we have these challenges we face. We have these hard things we go through. And when those things happen to us, we each have a choice. And we choose to turn to him or we choose to turn away from him. And when we turn to him, he can bless us and help us through it. And we ascend in that spiral. And when we turn away from him, we lose those blessings and the help that he wants to give us. And we descend down this spiral in our relationship with God. And I love that you chose to turn to him. And I love that as a result of turning to him, it sealed your heart to his. That's a fabulous way to say it. But I'm so sorry you had to go through it. That's horrible.
me too.
Let's talk about something a little more positive. Let's talk about your painting. So I'm seeing all these beautiful paintings behind you, and I know I've seen that green one with the gold circle before. Can you tell me about that painting? Where have I seen that painting before?
Yeah, so that's a very special painting to me. It's actually the only one that I won't sell. Like all the other paintings, anybody can come by them at any moment, but that one, no. and it's because it has a really beautiful story. And just settle in, buckle your seatbelt, and I'll tell you the story.
Okay.
So it all started in the fall of 2016. I was painting in my basement. I didn't have this beautiful studio at the time. And a very profound thought came into my mind while I was painting that day. And it was, you need to be better at this. And I was like, I know. And then it was like, okay, well, how did you get here? Well, I'm the product of a great art education. I literally was drawing stick figures as a senior in high school. That's a whole other story. But basically, I learned how to paint in college at BYU, Idaho. And so I thought, oh, well, if I learned how to paint at BYU, Idaho, then I need to go back to school. I need to go get a master's degree. And so I researched fine art degrees. And I'm going to tell you right now, most people don't know this, but what I do, like representational painting is really hard to find in academia. Like most masters of fine arts programs don't even consider this fine art. Okay. So it took like a lot of research, but I found a school in Southern California called Laguna School of Art and Design, and they had a master's degree in fine art that was welcoming to representational painting. And so I got into the school. I even got a little scholarship. They were like so excited to have me. But then I had all these questions come into my mind, like, okay, I've got 3 kids. They're like 2, 4, and 6. Who's going to watch my kids while I'm in school? And how will I afford to live in Laguna Beach? And what about my husband's job? And it was like I knew what God needed me to do, but it just seemed like there was no possible way for it to happen. So I did this painting called Waiting for Answers, and it's of a girl just like this, like side profile. And she's just like looking up because I was just like, any moment now, any moment you want to like shed some light on this situation, we're ready for it. And anyways, at that same time, I got a painting of a woman holding a black balloon called Let Go, kind of about my grief journey into a national show. And it was kind of a big deal. So I flew out to Cincinnati, Ohio for this show. And there was a man there who I greatly admired and respected. Like I had seen some of his original work when I was at school at BYU, Idaho. His name was William Whitaker, like phenomenal painter. And I get talking to him at this conference, and I was like, "Yeah, guess what? I'm going back to school because I want to get better at this, and I don't know how it's all going to work out, but this is what I feel really called to do." And he was like, "I wouldn't do that if I were you." And I was like, "Why?" Like, I actually already paid a $5,000 non-refundable deposit on tuition. And he's like, "Well, because if you go, like, you'll get a degree, you'll get a piece of paper, but if you want our education, you should come study with me." And I was like, I Didn't realize that was an option. But it was interesting because I didn't say yes right away because I was so like trying to follow the spirit and thought the spirit wanted me to go to Laguna, right? So I fly home on this all night flight and I'm writing in my journal the whole way and trying to figure out this decision. And then I get home and I tell my husband about it and he was like, I was like, so I think we need to pray about it. And he was like, seriously, Janity, are you not feeling like are you not feeling what I'm feeling right now? And I was like, yeah, I guess you're right. So I deferred to Laguna and I went to study with William Whitaker, who just happened to live 20 minutes from my home in Provo. And it was so beautiful because guess what? That painting where the girl was waiting for answers, I actually finished it in his studio. So like I was waiting for answers and then like I finished that painting in the answers studio. So then I was so grateful. And sometimes as an artist, it's easy to paint when you're like sad. I did a lot of sad paintings. I call it like my art therapy after my son died. But sometimes it's hard to paint when you're glad, when you're grateful, And so I told this teacher of mine, I was like, I really want to paint gratitude. I want to paint that like when things actually work out. And so this painting coming full circle is when things actually work out, when they come full circle. And I painted it with a live model in his studio. We had 3 sessions, and then I would work on it at home with photography reference. So it was kind of a combo. But I finished it on a Friday, and my mentor passed away on Tuesday. And I was so devastated. I remember getting the call from his daughter and I just like fell to my knees in my driveway. Like my kids were outside riding bikes and I just collapsed because I couldn't believe it because I was planning on studying with this man for several years and we'd only had 9 months. And I just felt like my education wasn't complete. And not only that, but he'd become like my best friend. And
did you feel like Luke Skywalker when Yoda passed away?
No, literally my husband that day said, Janity, all Jedis must finish their training without their master. He literally said that. You're such a dude. Anyways, so then
I am so sorry you lost your mentor. That would have been so rough.
It was, but it's so beautiful because he hasn't gone far. I still get instruction from him all the time. I swear he hangs out here all the time. But anyways, after that, the funeral, I started painting a portrait of Christ that if we want a field trip, I can actually show you.
Please do.
So this is just a print. The original is owned by somebody in St. George, but and this is little, right? The original is like 5 feet tall. But this was one of my first paintings of Christ. And you'll notice that Beautiful. I had the courage to like crop his head.
That was the first thing I noticed in the whole.
You're like, what? Because this painting is called The Invitation, right? So it's about the invitation to come to know Jesus Christ.
Oh, I love that.
Like, can you finish the portrait, right? Like, and I feel like this idea of like we have to earn that, right? So anyways, so I'm working on this painting and I feel all this opposition in my studio. Like every time I go to work on this painting, it's just like, your mentor died. You have no talent. You should stop painting. Who are you to paint Jesus Christ? Like, just like, I was like,
that's the dark side of the force.
Yeah. The dark side, man. It was strong. It was so strong. And so in my efforts to fight the dark side, I was like, gonna call upon the best spiritual Yoda master, right? So I said, I'm gonna listen to Russell and Nelson. So like he actually became an apostle the year I was born. So I went back to 1984 and I just started listening to him, all of his talks that he's given, like coming forward in time. And then like I'm there in my studio listening and the spirit just kind of like it hits me over the head and it's like, oh, Janity, you had lunch with him. And I was like, oh, I did. And I go over to my journal wall and I pull off the shelf. I have a wall of journals. Okay. And it was April 26th, 2006. That was the day I graduated from BYU, Idaho. And they invited an apostle to come speak at our graduation. And it just happened to be Elder Nelson. And they asked like they invited one student from each department to have lunch with him and his wife Wendy. And I was selected from art, and my husband was selected from horticulture. So we actually both got to go have lunch with Elder Nelson and Sister Nelson. And we're eating lunch, and they open it up for Q&A. And I raised my hand, and I was just like, Elder Nelson, I have been working so hard to develop this skill of being a painter. Like, I want to be like an artist. I want to be a good artist. But I know that being a mom is like the most important thing I'll ever do. So, do you think it's possible to do both? And like he looked at me with this like twinkle in his eye, and he was like, absolutely. And as you work in faith, you will be able to accomplish the impossible. Like, I'm reading this in my journal, okay? And I'm like, ah! And I just feel the Spirit, just kind of give me this huge, and I was like, not today, Satan. And then I like went back to my easel and I finished that painting. And it was so powerful and so beautiful. Okay, well then, I told you it's a long story. So then it's now October. And the Ensign, which was then called the Ensign, now it's the Liahona, but the church magazine called me and said, hey, Jenny, we wondered if we could use your painting Coming Full Circle on the inside cover of the magazine. And we would like to pair it with the words of President Nelson on the impact of women and their influence for good in the world, like a quote by him. And I was just like, it's called Coming Full Circle. And then it's like my painting, the words of now President Nelson, and it's all like coming full circle, And that's like what's so amazing. This is why I keep a record, right? Is because if I hadn't written it down, I would have forgotten it. Because at the time, it wasn't as like moments sometimes in our life mean more in the future. Have you thought about that? Like some things grow in their efficacy, they grow in their importance over time. And just like that lunch, like at the time, I'm going to be really honest with you right here, and hopefully President Nelson never hears this podcast. But at the time, I was thinking, oh, Elder Nelson's coming. Oh, I just really love Elder Irene. Like I really love that guy. And so at the time, it was still cool to have lunch with Elder Nelson, but I'm saying it means more to me now than it did to me then, right? And sometimes you're going to have experiences like that, and if you don't write them down, then it doesn't allow God to show you the full picture.
Yeah.
So we kind of started out today talking about what people don't know about me. And I told you it was like, oh, well, it was hard for me to get pregnant with my first son. So yesterday, as I was preparing this message for church for Mother's Day, I felt impressed to go back to 2007 and read that year of trying to get pregnant. And it was so beautiful because now I have this hindsight and I could see just this golden thread of God's hand woven through the entire picture. Like I thought he wasn't listening to me, right? I thought, man, why am I praying to become a mom and God doesn't give a crap? Like, how come he's not listening to me? How come every month is an enormous disappointment? But now I look back and I go, oh, because Jenny, you don't know it, but you're going to only get 3 years with that kid. And you're going to bury him. And you're going to need some serious spiritual strength to get through that. So just imagine, Jenny, God gave you like almost a year of daily yearning, seeking, studying, praying, right? So he built you up spiritually. Not only that, but by the time you actually got that kid, did you take advantage of every moment you had with him? Yes. Also, in that same year, God put me in as a leader with the young women in our congregation, and like I got to practice mothering these 12-year-old girls. And then I got asked to play the role of Mary in this musical called Savior of the World. It's a musical produced by the church, and I auditioned hoping to be like an angel, like in the choir, like in the background. And when I got the role of Mary, I was like, are you kidding me right now? I don't even sing soprano. I literally remember calling him on. So the good news is God's going to teach me how to sing soprano. But I got to like memorize the Magnificat, like her Mary's Psalm, right? And I got to like really delve myself into what it felt like to play her role. And then on top of all of this, yeah, after like 8 months of trying to have a kid and not being successful, it was my birthday. And my husband's like, what can I do for my wife? All she really wants is a baby. And he got me a kitten. And I named her Fergie, and she was this little black kitten. And she was in the studio with me all the time. You know, because sometimes being an artist is kind of lonely. That's why I like podcasts. It's like you're here in the studio, Nathan. And so like I had this little kitten with me, and it was like, you know, those who are pet owners that don't have children know how these little creatures become like your little babies, right? Well, she was only a month old or so when I realized some interesting behaviors. She like wasn't eating and she wasn't really gaining weight. So I took her into the vet and found out that she was actually born with a fatal feline disease.
Oh no.
And so
You've had a
that
lot
little
of loss in your life. I am so
well,
sorry.
but listen, so this little kitten lives 3 months, and then we had to put her down. And at the time, it seems cruel, right? In the moment, it seems like, oh my gosh, God is so mean right now. Like, not only is he not giving me a kid, but he just took the only little creature, the only little baby that I had, right? And from all intents and purposes on the outside, it looks mean, right? But then you give it enough time, you get a decades of experience, and you go back and you go, God gave me an experience in loss and let me experience it on a smaller level so that I could be more prepared when it was only 4 years later that I was going to have to bury my son, you know? And now does it look mean? No. Now it looks merciful. It looks kind. It looks like he was preparing me. He was giving me all the things that I would need in motherhood.
Interesting. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
I looked through your paintings on your website. You have some amazingly beautiful, very deeply thoughtful artwork you've done. There was one painting that really resonated with me, that really touched me, and it's called Delivered. Is there a story behind that painting?
Well, yeah. I mean, the painting itself is of Mary holding Jesus Christ as the infant, and he's wrapped in swaddling bands that are embroidered, because that's something that I learned when I did the painting that preceded that. Is called Little Lamb, which is just of Christ in embroidered swaddling bands. And I actually painted it from like an aerial perspective, you know, because like sometimes as an artist you have to solve these problems, like how do you get an adult and a baby compositionally in the same frame together in a way that looks normal and pretty. And most of the time people do like this, you know. And but I just thought how beautiful it would be like from God's perspective, like what
Yeah.
God saw, like looking down, and it's kind of like her skirt, her dress, or whatever, her tunic makes kind of like a nest, like a home for this baby, that for his son. So that was kind of the original concept, but there's more to the story because I played that role of Mary that we talked about while I was waiting to get pregnant. I learned that the swaddling bands were embroidered in that role, because the church has heavily researched everything that goes into that musical, and I had to read like all this research about my role as Mary. And that was one of the things that I learned, that in the first century, when a girl was betrothed, she would begin working on her swaddling bands, and she would embroider them with symbols of her heritage and that of her spouse. And these bands were then used in the wedding ceremony. Their hands were wrapped in the swaddling bands, and so the phrase like tie the knot comes from this ancient practice, and it was a symbol of these two families coming together as one. And then the baby, when he's born, is wrapped in a symbol of the marriage covenant, which is incredibly beautiful. Well, Mary is the house of Judah, and do you know the symbol for Judah? Do you know the symbol for the house of David, for Judah?
Yeah, I do not.
It's a lion. And so the C.S. Lewis fan in me, all the Narnia fans out there will be like, oh, yeah. So I embroidered a lion on his swaddling bands.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was so beautiful. Now get this. I'm working on the first painting, Little Lamb, and it's just like a year or so after my son has died. And I'm learning all this research about Jesus Christ's birth, like the swaddling bands, but then also like he wasn't put in a wooden manger, right? Like I think it's pretty common knowledge now that he was put in a limestone manger, but at the time everybody's like, you think of wooden slats with straw. Well, I did this research, talked to Jeff Chadwick at BYU, an archaeologist, and he's like, yeah, they also didn't collect and store hay, Gennady, because grass grew year round. And so the mangers were actually used for water. So I paint Little Lamb, I paint baby Jesus in a limestone trough in linen with the lion embroidered on it. And I'm thinking, this is so cool. Like I've learned so much about the nativity in this painting, but then I was almost done with it and God was like, Gennady, you're totally missing the point. And I was like, what? Because I've learned so much. And he was like, yeah, when else in his life will he be wrapped in white linen and placed on a stone?
Oh, wow.
And then, I am there in my studio as this all just this, and God is so cool how he asks me questions. He does that a lot. Like, what, Gennady, when else in his life? And it's so powerful, I think, the question versus just telling me, because then you discover it in your mind, because your mind goes there to his burial, right? And all of a sudden I just burst into tears because I know what it's like to have a son on the altar. Like I know what it's like to bury my firstborn son, and then to know that God sent his son, but he sent him packaged, wrapped as the great and last sacrifice, put him on the altar from the very first day. Like God so loved the world, right?
Wow.
And so that's why that painting Little Lamb is still today like one of my favorites. But yeah, so that year was so beautiful, so powerful, and like the commiseration of God, right? Like I felt like this wasn't that hard. This information wasn't that hard for me to find. Like, why has nobody else done this? And then to have God just be like, but Gennady, what it feels like to have your son on an altar. And so I felt this beautiful, like God commiserating with me. Like he's sorry that my son had to die. And so then the next year I was like, well, I want to do another piece, but this time I want to paint Mary. And at this point I've had 4 kids. And I know a little bit about what it is to like bear a baby. I know it a little bit. I've actually had all 4 of my kids naturally. The first one was intentional because I just wanted to know what it felt like to have a baby, which I know for all those women out there that have had epidurals, like, bless you. But just for me personally, like I felt like birth is so symbolic, and I just felt like it was also so sacred that I wanted to experience it. And it was just everything they say that it is. In fact, my husband was like, if you would like me present at future births, we will be medicating, But then my other 3 kids came so fast, I didn't have a choice. I just showed up and was like, yeah, you're having a baby. So I had all of these kids naturally, and what a gift it is to bring forth life, and so that just really got me to ponder it. And especially because I had played the role of Mary and everything that she brought to the table, like all that she sacrificed even before she got to that moment, because of everything that she endured socially, right? As an unwed mother, pregnant. And then everything that she endured, and then physically the pain that she went through to bring her son, and then just knowing that he was going to do the same thing for her, but spiritually, it's just so beautiful. That relationship is so beautiful. So that's why I painted Delivered.
I love it. Thank you so much
you,
for
Nathan.
sharing.
I warned you.
So Gennady, we've just shared these amazing spiritual experiences with us. Now I want to move to American Ninja Warrior. I almost feel bad doing that because you've You shared such depth of spiritual experiences with us, and now we're going to something lighter. Is there a spiritual experience that has come from your journey with American Ninja Warrior?
I assure you, Nathan, I would not be an American Ninja Warrior if it wasn't for spiritual reasons. Okay.
All right. Maybe I don't feel so bad then.
Yeah, no, it's actually kind of an incredible story. So I lose my son, and for me, I was never an athlete, but I was a casual runner. I didn't play any sports in high school at all. But after my son died, running took on this new potency, because I felt that when I ran, it was like an outlet for all these really hard feelings that I had, and I could run and I could be like, ah! Like literally I did that. I was that person, that crazy woman running down her neighborhood, like crying and running at the same time because it felt good. Anyways, a couple of years go down the road and we moved here to Utah, and I got into doing like mom fitness, did some high fitness, and started to build like baby strength that way. And then one day, this was in 2018, my brother, who's actually my next door neighbor, invited me to go rock climbing with him at this indoor gym called Momentum. It's bouldering, so you don't have ropes or harnesses. You just climb and fall on mats. And I loved it because like I had never bouldered before, but they're called problems, and you can go like face your problems at the climbing gym, and that was just really therapeutic for me. So I got a pass, and I was 3 months into my bouldering experience, which anybody that climbs know is so infantile. Okay, it's like so baby. And I'm there, and I feel a prompting. You should apply to American Ninja Warrior. And I was like, that was weird. That was weird. We're not doing that. And you just kind of, I feel like I'm so thankful. You guys, God is so persistent, and I'm so glad because he gives us some multiple chances. Because I'm telling you right now, most of the things he asks me to do are so crazy right off the bat that I tell him no. But then he comes back and he gives me another chance. So this feeling to apply to American Ninja Warrior kept coming. Oh my gosh, it kept coming. And literally the only reference I even had for American Ninja Warrior is that I had watched the show. Like I'd never been to a ninja gym before. But it came so frequently that finally one day I had to have a prayer that I never thought I would have. And it was, yeah, do you want me to apply to American Ninja Warrior? And you almost like laugh when you say it because it sounds like so crazy. And then the spirit, like undeniably, yes. And you're just like, why? No, that's so terrifying. So anyway, so God told me to do it. And I kind of have this mantra that's similar to Nephi, and thus the Lord hath commanded me and I must obey. So I applied. And after I applied, I told my husband, like, I don't have any experience at all. Like, I guess I should sign up for classes. And then also I'll tell you, when you apply, you have to, it's like online, you fill out a million essay questions and then you submit a video. So I have to go film a video. Well, a ninja gym isn't close to my house at this point. And so I go to Airborne, which is like a trampoline kid birthday party place by my house. And they have like a few ninja obstacles. Okay. So I had never successfully navigated any of these obstacles before. And the guy that's videotaping me says, okay, I want you to go to the beginning. We're going to do quintuple steps. We're going to do the rolling log. We're going to do the jumping spider. We're going to do the double steps. We're going to do it all in one take. And I was like, cool.
I don't even know what any of those things are.
And I go to the starting line. And all of a sudden, Nathan, I feel my son. And he says, let's do this, Mom. And like all the hesitation that you normally feel, like what keeps sane people from doing ninja? Usually hesitation, right? All of that just left. And I ran across those steps and I ran across the log and I did the jumping spider and I did the double step and I came down the other side and I looked at my husband and I was like, I've never done that before. And he was like, I know. And I was like, I don't know, maybe I could be a ninja. So after I applied, but it was so beautiful for me that I felt my son there at the start, as like being part of this really hard thing, right? So then, I have to go to classes. And at this point, moms don't take ninja classes. I now teach moms ninja. So anybody out there, I will teach you. But at the time, moms did not do ninja. So I go to the gym to sign up for classes, and they're like, "Oh, are you here to sign up your kids?" And I was like, "No, actually, I'm here to take classes." And so like my coaches are like these teenage boys, you know, and I feel like so dumb. I feel so dumb. I can't even tell you, because your first obstacle is like you've got a bar here and you've got a bar 6 feet away, and you're swinging on this bar, and they expect you to like swing and then catch this bar that's 6 feet away. And I'm swinging on the first bar thinking I'm 5'7", like there's 5 inches between my toes and that bar. And like, what am I going to do? Levitate? Like, is it physically possible for me to get to that bar? Like, it seems so crazy. But you swing and you throw and you miss, and you swing and you throw and you miss, and you swing and you throw, and one day you tap it. You tap it with your fingers, and then you go, oh, it's possible. Like if my fingers touched it, then it's just like my hand. Okay. And then you do it. And then you feel amazing, because something that seemed totally impossible to you now becomes possible. Well, Nathan, now over the course of 6 years, that bar that started at 6 feet, it's moved to 7, it's moved to 8, it's moved to 9, it's moved to 10, it's moved to 11 feet. I've currently spanned 11 feet in a lache. Okay. And so how is ninja spiritual? Well, it takes faith, right? You have to have a hope. You have to have a belief in something that you cannot see. I couldn't see myself at the time ever spanning 10 feet, 11 feet, let alone 6 feet, right? But the belief, the faith, you move forward in faith with this hope that it's possible, that maybe, and then it becomes a reality. And it's taught me that, like, what else in my life am I telling myself is not possible, but actually is? And also this idea that, like, we are children of God. Like, anything is possible for us. We are His. And as we go forward in faith, like President Nelson once told me, as we go forward in faith, like, we can accomplish the impossible, right? And so this whole ninja journey, I thought God was asking me to go on the show to just like be a missionary for a hot second on NBC. Okay, well, I come home, and after I did my first season, I made it to the fourth obstacle, which is really great as a rookie. And your friends are like, when are we gonna watch you? And I'm like, I don't know. I'll let you know. We'll have a party. And then you get an email. It's like, actually, you did really awesome, but you competed with too many celebrities, and we don't have time for you on TV. You're like, well, that's disappointing. That's like a giant letdown. It's going to be like it didn't even happen. And then you're like, God, why are we doing this? And then God's like, well, Janity, you've been training just like 3 months. What do you think would happen if you trained for like a year? You're like, I'd probably get stronger. But it sounds so painful and so hard and so scary that you don't want to do it, right? But thus the Lord hath commanded me, and I must obey. So I go forward another year and another year and another year. And after 4 seasons, they had never aired my run. And I came into my studio. I was kind of mad. I like threw my bag and was like, why are we even doing this anyways? And then God was like, oh, Janity, did you think this was about TV? Do you think that I asked you to do this, to become a ninja, to do American Ninja Warrior, because I care about NBC? And you're just kind of like, well, you're the one that asked me to do this. I don't know. You know, Janity, look at you. You're a totally different person today than you were 5 years ago. Look at your arms. And you're like, oh yeah, I guess we have gotten stronger. And then God's like, Janity, I care way more about the development of an individual than I do about TV. And then you're like, yeah, I guess you're right. So I then compete season 17, my 5th time last September, and they're actually going to air it in June. So finally, but that's the thing, is that I learned that wasn't the point, right? And and there's actually a bigger point, because I did ninja, it led me to I'm doing like 30 paintings of strong women right now, okay? And the paintings range from cancer survivors to amputees to 93-year-old widows to American Ninja Warrior athletes to Olympian rock climbers. You can actually see, I don't know, some of them behind me, and then because I did ninja, I met Jessie Graff, who's like one of the best female competitors on the show. She's a professional stunt woman. She's in movies. She's a really cool person. And God asked me if I would paint her portrait. Like another thing that I was like, no, she's like famous. I'm nobody. She's gonna think I'm weird if I ask if I could paint her. But then God's like, this is your moment. And you're like, okay, I'll go. So it's like, hey Jessie, like I'm actually a better painter than I am a ninja, and like maybe I could paint your portrait sometime. And she was like, that would be really cool. And so then I painted her portrait. Okay, we'll field trip. Okay, fine. And it's like God leads you along and you don't know why, just like a step at a time. Okay. Oh, they've got some reflection from my windows. But do you see this back? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
This is Nathan, this is what consistency looks like. Okay. So I'm painting all of these women. I'm painting all these women. Okay. And then they all have these incredible stories. Like this ninja girl, this ninja queen. She's actually had like a million reconstructive surgeries. I think like 11 or 12. And she just does the therapy and she comes back stronger. And nobody on TV knows that, right? And then God's like, Jenny, all these women have such incredible stories. You should let them come share their stories. You should do a conference. God, you know, I once told you that never put me in charge of organizing anything. Do you remember that? So, anyways, I really think American Ninja Warrior was all leading to the Strong Woman Experience, which is happening at the Hale Center Theater September 26th in Sandy, Utah.
And tell us a little bit more about that experience. What is it?
Yeah, so it's a conference. We've got like 500 women. We have 500 tickets. And they're going to come and they're going to start with an art show. Okay, so they're going to have like all the original pieces for display, but then they're going to go into the conference hall and they're going to get to hear the stories of these women live, right?
Wow.
And then and like that, there's something so powerful about like just that, like the community of like these actual spirits, these souls in the same room together, right? And the mingling of that and being inspired. And like one of the big goals I have is like, this is about spiritual strength, this is about physical strength, this is about mental strength. Okay. And so it's like, if you're a spiritually strong person, but maybe a little bit physically weak, like bring your spiritual strength and see if we can add to your physical. If you're like super jacked, like physical strong girl, but maybe spiritually weak, come and see if we can add to your spiritual strength, you know, because I feel like we are dual beings. We are body and spirit. Like we came to earth to get a body. Like God, we believe, has a body. So our body must be divine. I feel like we keep our spiritual health and our physical health like this, right? And I'm kind of being like, I think it's time to bring these worlds together. Now, you can't have a strong woman conference and sit, Nathan. Okay, so the first 3 hours or so are going to be at the Hale Center Theater. Then we're going to have lunch. And then the afternoon is going to be at Impact Ninja, which is a 44,000 square foot ninja gym. Now, I have to say this. This is not about everybody learning ninja, okay? It's just a space. But I'm going to fill it with experiences, like strong experiences, everything from jujitsu, weightlifting training, aerial silks, yoga, hip hop. I'm teaching a journaling class. I have a person talking about mental health. So it's like not all physical, and there's going to be a whole bunch of breakout sessions that women can choose from to participate in. But it's just like, I don't know why, Nathan, but I just keep feeling this call that like God wants a strong people.
Yeah.
And in like all the ways. So I think that's why he asked me to do American Ninja Warrior, is because he knew it was like the vehicle that would make me a stronger person and then would put me in this position that I could try to rally these women together. So.
And if people want to know more about this amazing event you just described, where can they go to get tickets?
strongwomenexperience.com.
Jenny, thank you so much. I have thoroughly enjoyed this interview and these stories that you've shared. In conclusion, we have this question that we ask everybody. Why do you believe?
I don't even know if I believe so much, Nathan, is that I know. Why do I know? Well, because like I've kept this journal since I was 10, right? And I've written down my questions and I've found answers. And I've written down my problems and I found solutions. And I've written down my disappointments and I found solace. And it's like I was really nerdy growing up long before the art thing came into play. I was like very academic and the scientific method and all that. And I feel like I have experimented upon the word and it is true. Like like I am a daughter of God because I have evidence of it. Like it's written down in these books. I can see his hand over and over again. And there's so many experiences that could not be explained any other way. There's no other reason why I would ever, as a 34-year-old mother, walk into a ninja gym, right? Like I was actually on a podcast with a girl who's agnostic, and she was like, how do you know it wasn't just like your higher self beckoning you forward? Like, how do you know it was really God? And I was like, because I didn't agree with it. Because, like, I could tell you there was an other thing, and I was butting up against it, right? Like, I don't fight with myself. Like, I was feeling, do this thing, and I was like, no, I don't want to do this thing. And so that tells me that there was something outside of myself that was asking me to do it. And I believe that it is God. And I believe that he is my father. Why do I believe that I'm a child of God? Well, because I feel his spirit coursing through my veins. Like I feel this divine nature that calls me to do these things that seem so hard and so impossible. But I go forward because I know I won't be alone. I know that he will be there with me. And so I believe because I have proof, I have evidence.
I love it. It's true. Thank you so much for sharing, Jenny.
Sure.